many ways, 2023 has started off feeling like a big celebration of the first entry in the Last of Us series. The year started with us already having a fresh new PS5 remake of the original game to enjoy, and with each passing week, we have been given a chance to dive deep into a small slice of Joel and Ellie's first outing through the lens of The Last of Us TV show on HBO. And as the season ends in March, a PC port of the Part 1 remake will allow a brand new gaming audience to experience this masterpiece. But pretty soon, the focus will be shifting to what happens next with this story. And while The Last of Us Part 2 is already out there, knowing Sony, they will be looking for a way to repeat their Part 1 strategy and offer a refreshed version of The Last of Us Part 2 in time for The Last of Us Season 2. Dr. Pooplove here, and let's talk about The Last of Us Part 2 Director's Cut, and specifically why this version of the game is inevitable. And stick around until the end because I want to talk about what I think a Director's Cut should offer. And of course, it goes without saying, this video is going to be full of spoilers for The Last of Us Part 2, so consider yourself warned. But let's get right into it. And where we should start is where we first heard about the possible existence of a director's cut, and that is with Tom Henderson's insider leak in early 2022. Now, with this post on Twitter, he stated that The Last of Us remake was a likely release in 2022, and that actually did happen. He also stated that The Last of Us multiplayer is also on the way, which Naughty Dog promised we will be hearing about that game later this year. And finally, he stated that a Last of Us 2 director's cut was also in the works. And Tom has had a pretty good track record, and especially so with The Last of Us, so I have no reason to believe that this is not true. But we also have a little bit more interesting evidence to look at, and that is that Sony has recently privated a video that promoted the PS5 Upgrade patch that The Last of Us Part 2 had received. Now, this free update only did a few things, like enhancing the game to play at 60 FPS and some DualSense haptic support. But why would Sony private this video? Well, in all likelihood, that is because they're planning on an even bigger update in the future, and having this older update searchable could confuse the message. And, well, from a cynical business perspective, they will probably be charging for this upcoming update and probably don't want people to realize that there is a free version out there. But having a bigger update inherently implies that they will need to add more than just 60 FPS and controller support, and that's where a director's cut could come in. But beyond this news, a director's cut just makes sense. Firstly, the other two PlayStation games that have gotten director's cuts so far came out in a similar time frame as The Last of Us Part 2. Death Stranding, which came out in later 2019, got one, and Ghost of Tsushima, which released a month after Part 2 did in 2020, received a director's cut as well. So it definitely would make sense that The Last of Us Part 2 would be getting one. But there also is the recent announcement that The Last of Us HBO would be getting renewed for a second season. And what we have learned from season 1 is that Sony likes to have a fully priced entry point available around the season to generate a spike in game sales. This strategy has been working for The Last of Us Part 1, which has seen a lot of sales growth during season 1. And so there is no reason to believe they will not want to repeat this strategy for season 2. But an unfortunate side effect of this could mean that the director's cut could intentionally be delayed until closer to the season 2 premiere, which we don't even have a date for yet. Perhaps though, a director's cut could come earlier to PS5, and then a PC port could arrive closer to the premiere date. You also have to consider The Last of Us Factions standalone multiplayer, which is going to be in the mix somehow and likely out before The Last of Us Season 2 premieres. And so Naughty Dog will have to carefully coordinate when they're planning to release all of this content so that The Last of Us Part 2 Director's Cut and the multiplayer are not really stepping on each other's toes. And so I do think it makes more sense that the multiplayer will come out first while people are waiting for Season 2 news, and The Last of Us Part 2 Director's Cut would probably come a little bit closer to that Season 2 premiere. And by the way, I do think a PC port is also inevitable. Sony is porting pretty much all their games over, and The Last of Us Part 1 is next, so there's no reason to believe that The Last of Us Part 2 won't also be coming. But we might know a little bit more this year, as Naughty Dog has teased some fun surprises closer to the 10-year anniversary of the original game's release in June. But what could we expect from a director's cut? Well, for one, I would expect them to add some of the features that we saw brought to The Last of Us Part 1 remake, such as a speedrunning mode and perhaps new skins and gameplay modifiers. But I think for this to really make a splash and really be considered a director's cut, they will need more content. Now, one thing that could be really cool, and I see a lot of people talking about this, is to see Tommy's 3-day journey through Seattle. This would be cool, as we only know a little bit about what he did during those 3 days, and to be honest, this might be the easiest way to create new content, as you could just have him going through some of the same levels that have already been made, but just with maybe different enemy encounters. Either way though, I think it's high time that we get a chance to play as Tommy. Another interesting angle though that I would like to see is Lev and Abby's journey to Catalina Island and to the Fireflies. This was alluded to in the game menu after you beat the game, but having something like this could give us a little bit more details on what is going on with the Fireflies, and could be an interesting way to tease us and set us up for the eventual Last of Us Part 3 entry. But what would you like to see from a director's cut? And of course, The Last of Us Part 3 seems to be just as inevitable as this, because of all the story that's left to tell in The Last of Us universe. And I go over some of these open storylines in this video, so you should check it out. But otherwise, so long, Pooper Troopers.